In each of the consulting rooms, there's a little tiny whiteboard, and it's just stuck on the wall. And every day there's some little quote somebody's written up there with a marker. So while I'm sitting in this room waiting for him to finish with his previous client, I'll often look at that board with the little quote on it. This one particular day a year ago, I looked up and it said, "Pain is an emotion." That's all it said, nothing else. I sat there and looked and I'm thinking, pain is an emotion. I know pain is a message. I understand that concept, but pain is an emotion, and it played on my mind for days. And then all of a sudden I had a light bulb moment. I thought pain is actually a stuck emotion. It's an emotion that we haven't processed. It's an emotion that we're holding on to for the wrong reasons. It's an emotion that we haven't sat with, acknowledged, worked through and recognized. It's one we've pushed down because of life. If you bite your tongue, more and more gets suppressed. We hold billions of emotions. But when you hold them and you don't process them, either by verbalizing them or working through them or recognizing them, sitting with them and letting them pass through, that's why pain is an emotion.
So the big question is this. We know spontaneous remissions and so-called miracle cures exist. We also know they aren't so spontaneous after all. I'm living proof of this, having cured my quote-unquote incurable illness. There's something to how this happens. So how do we, as humans with chronic symptoms, tap into this so-called miraculous healing capacity? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Dr. Erin Hayford, and welcome to the Sacred Illness Podcast. Before we begin today's episode, just my standard medical disclaimer. This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The content should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical concerns. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Sacred Illness Podcast. Today, I have Lyn Cole on the show. Lyn is in Central Victoria, which is a state of Australia, and she's going to walk us through her lifelong journey with her body, with the health challenges she's faced, talking about how her entire life she's been in this relationship of learning from her body and engaging with her health in different ways. And Lyn is now in her 60s, and so it's really going to be this lifelong journey that she's had of understanding what her body's teaching her and how she's navigated both holistic health and the conventional medical system and how she's learned from it and moved with it and everything that came through that journey. I'm excited to hear from someone who has been working with and been in relationship with health challenges and with your body for your whole life in the way that you have and just the things that you've learned along the way. So welcome, Lyn. Thanks for making the time work. It's 1 o'clock here in the United States and it's 7 a.m. there in Australia the next day. So thanks for making the time zones work out. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Good morning, Erin. Thank you. Yes, it is 7 a.m. I'm literally watching the sun come up over the trees.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we were talking about how it's so funny that, like, technically I'm in Lyn's past and she's in my future. So time zones are interesting in that way. So I know you have a very beautiful, long history that we're going to talk through. So wherever you want to start this story, let's jump in.
Because I am in my late 60s, if I literally did a story from the start, I think we'd use up the whole interview time. So I probably won't go there to start. I hadn't thought about how I'd start, to be honest. But I'd say probably since the age of under 10, I've been very aware of my body functioning a little bit different to other people. And I've even questioned it as a child, like, how come I get that, but nobody else gets that? When I was a teenager, around age 17, I actually left home and became independent. Up until then, under the guidance of my mum, she was very used to the typical medical model and anything was treated via the medical model. When I left home at 17, I joined a gym as a way of getting exercise and meeting new people. The woman who managed the place happened to be into natural healing, and she was probably the catalyst to open my thinking to alternatives. I hadn't really been exposed to it till then. She introduced me to a naturopath, naturopath who I'd never heard of a naturopath before. He introduced me to applied kinesiology. I ended up leaving my job and working for the naturopath, studied, got the certification in AK. And from then on, it's just been like this massive dive down into this alternative way of healing. Well, it's actually not. I shouldn't call it that because it's actually the true way of healing in my mind. And because of medical conditions that my body has had over my lifetimes, I've been introduced very deeply into the typical medical model as well in a very big way. So I've got really good, strong comparisons on both sides of the coin. And that's helped me make it more obvious to what works and what doesn't work. The Western world medical model doesn't acknowledge our spirit or our mind. It looks at symptoms, and its main goal, I think, is to suppress a symptom.
Yeah.
Obviously, Western medicine is amazing because they can save your life. If you've got a broken bone, they can fix it. I'm not bagging it in any way, shape or form. It's got its position in the world. We live longer because of it. But from what I call a 3-point stand, which is mind, body, spirit, the real healing happens in a totally different way. The inner healing happens in a totally different way. The medical model will give us the strategies for bones and scratches, but I find I keep calling it the alternative way because that's what it's always been labelled as, and I don't like using it because to me it's the true way. But I find from an emotional, spiritual, which then leads to physical healing, the real healing happens the way that I embrace.
It sounds like you have this experience of if you want to heal, if you really want to understand yourself and have a deeper experience of who you are with your body and understanding your body, the medical model that you need to be in is that mind, body, spirit place. So I'm curious, you have this story, it sounds like from very young, of being the person who gets all these things and no one else does. And
Yeah.
do you feel like that fueled your curiosity for figuring out like,
Oh,
why am I
definitely.
different? Yeah.
Definitely. There is absolutely no doubt. Probably the most obvious time when this questioning started was my mother and father separated, and myself, my sister and her went and lived with my grandparents. And I developed the most severe asthma. It was just crazy, like hospitalized many times with it, and a string of really weird allergies. And I was the only person in the house that had it. And that was when my questioning started, because people would go, Jeepers, what's wrong with you all the time? Why do you get this? And I used to just sit there as a kid thinking, what's going on here? That's what started it. There's been times where I've been deeply depressed about it. I'm not going to deny that. But there's also been times where that depression has been the trigger for me to go, now, hang on a minute. You've got the knowledge, you've got the brains, you've got the ability to research this, get up off your butt and learn more. But you start to question not only what's wrong with me, but why me? And you're living in exactly the same environment, under the same roof, eating the same food.
Yep.
And that is what sparks the beginning.
Yep. And I had the same question. Someone said, what happened to you? When I got my autoimmune diagnosis, it was like, oh, Erin, what happened to you? And it's, oh my God, I don't know. What happened to me? Why am I so broken? It's this heaviness that you carry. And and that's what drove my curiosity too. It was just like, okay, what's going on with me? Because I'm different. So why? What is that? I think that's what drives us to conventional medicine is fear. And that's a problem, because if we live in fear of our bodies and of illness and of pain and of suffering, it drives us to extreme conclusion. Like, get out of my body, or give me the biggest medication you can. Just get rid of it. Understandably, things are uncomfortable and symptoms are scary. But if we're in that fear mindset instead of this understanding of this is a communication, it ultimately isn't going to harm me in most circumstances. Most of the time, symptoms are harmless in that they're not going to kill us. And that's the major paradigm shift that I advocate for, is understanding what symptoms really are and getting out of that fear mindset, because again, otherwise it drives us to extremes in the way that we approach illness.
Very much fear to me now when I look at it. So Too many people are walking this planet at the moment, fearful, in not just in their health. What if we lose the house? Oh my goodness, what if I lose my job? There's this fear ticking away in a lot of people's heads constantly. And fear does create all sorts of issues. Fear-based choices is such a dangerous thing for all of us to do, not just in our health, but in everything in our life. If you're making a choice based on fear, it's not the right choice.
No, it's not. And that's
No.
something that I see often in the clients I work with, where they come to me wanting this different approach to have a different relationship with their illness, but they're still approaching it from a fearful place, which I understand, but that becomes step one of, okay, we have to work on this relationship you have
Yes.
then with your illness, because ultimately, if it continues to be this fearful, I have to get rid of this thing at any cost. My work is about trying to have a conversation with your body, trying to trust
Yes.
it, trying to see your illness as an ally, right? Something trying to
Yes.
guide you and help you. So if we continue to have this fearful relationship with it, ultimately, that's not a healing relationship. That's the thing with illness. If it can't connect with you and communicate with you in the way that it needs, it's not going to, at least in my experience, it doesn't go away, or it's harder to heal. How did you work with that? Because again, being someone who had all these diagnoses come up and you were the one who got them and no one else did, what was your experience with fear? How did you work with that? Or how did that look in your journey with everything you experienced?
My goodness, I've had so many times and I've been absolutely flipping terrified.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that at all. But I think as much as I look back and leaving home at 17 and living independently is huge, and I had very little adult guidance, to be honest, like minuscule. So I learned very early that whatever was going to happen was up to me. Like I didn't have a person to ring and say, oh, I'm thinking of doing this, which at that age, I believe we
Yes.
need. And so I started doing things myself and I had no choice. And look, I made a lot of mistakes, but that's where we learned, made a huge amount of mistakes. That's okay though now, looking back. The fear part to me back then, it'd be like, oh my goodness, it's strong enough to do this. Now I just feel the fear and think, no, if my gut tells me this is the way to go, and I'm a little bit nervous about doing it, but my instincts are telling me it's right, I'll just do it. Whereas back in my 30s and 40s, I wouldn't, because that ripple effect was very obvious.
I think that's
Yeah.
exactly it. When you first encounter it, it's terrifying because fear as an emotion, its job, so to speak, is to stop us, right? It's saying, we don't know what
Absolutely.
that is, don't do it, it's unknown, it's unfamiliar. And so
Yes.
it stops us. There's the fear, but there's also intuition at the same time, right? And so if intuition is saying do it and fear is saying don't do it, the intuition is correct. The fear is just there because you've never done it before. And so
That's exactly right.
it always comes up in the face of the unknown. And so it's that repeated history of saying, okay, every time I followed my intuition, it got me to this next place or it got me to where I needed to go. I guess that sort of muscle memory, right? Of, okay, I have
Yes.
this experience. Now I know I can trust that. I know I can do it, even though the fear is here. So
Yeah.
that's a challenge we all face at the beginning of these kinds of alternative healing journeys is going off on that different path, even if we have family being like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is crazy.
Yeah.
It's really scary to choose differently, to do something that goes against the typical medical model, to go against maybe what your
Yeah.
family does, to do something you've never done before. It's very scary. And as we were
Yeah.
talking before we hit record, the goal of you sharing your story in this podcast is just trying to show people what other people have done and how it has led
Yes.
to where they are now, the healing or the mindset or the life that they now have, to inspire them if they're on this other side of fear, wondering if they should take the step. It's yes,
Yeah.
take the step. This is why.
And
And
that's
so,
exactly why I'm sitting here on the other side of the planet chatting to you. If somebody's going through something similar to you, regardless of what it is, and you've been through it, yes, you've experienced it a little bit differently to them. But if you can share that experience and it pings something in that other person's mind,
yep.
that's a win.
Yep. And like you said, even if it's slightly different, I think it's interesting. Everyone I talk to, we go through a similar arc or similar steps, and we face similar challenges. And fear is part of
Yeah.
it always. It's always part of this.
Always.
And
Yeah.
there's no getting around that, unfortunately.
Nope.
So then your 40s really is where things shifted, right? Because you said that's where you developed severe lumbar pain. And you
Mm.
really had to switch into the conventional medical system in a more intensive way, I guess we could say at that point. Tell us about that
Yeah.
journey.
I think I was in my early 40s, 41, 42 or so. And by this stage, I'm a single mum and I'm raising 4 children. So this is financial responsibility, schooling, everything. And that's fine. But I had huge responsibilities on my shoulders when I look back. And I was working 3 part-time jobs, like really overstretching myself. And I'm maintaining a home and mowing lawns and doing the shopping and doing the cleaning and the cooking and all on my own. And my body just started aching. I thought at the time it's pretty obvious, but you're doing
Yeah.
a lot of, but this lumbar lower back pain, oh my goodness, it just progressed over 12 months where it was just awful. Originally, I was just getting a massage. I was going to see a physio, and then I stepped into the medical model. And the first thing is, we'll give you a tablet to take away the pain. And holy moly, it still gives me goosebumps thinking about it because I've literally only been fully mobile and with a pain score of nearly 0 out of 10 for
Mm.
just on 15 months. This is all very new. So that journey went on for over 22, 23 years.
Wow.
It was massive. And jumping into that medical model really threw me. I was forced to do it because it was the doctor attributed it to one of the part-time jobs that I had because I was lifting massive weights day in, day out in a retail setting. And it ended up going into an insurance situation. And insurance situations only accept the medical model.
Right, of
If you
course.
say you're going to go and meditate on a mouth, they go, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Like, so I was put into this system that I not only didn't feel confident with, I didn't like it at all, but I was forced into it. And also as it progressed, because it got a lot worse, I had not only gone past the fear, I'd got to the point of, oh my goodness, I don't know what the heck I've done to create this. I cannot unravel why, where, how it's happened. I literally ran out of steam. I read all day just to research it. And I had learned so much about chronic pain and physical injuries and all the rest of it. I could not unravel this mystery at all. So early 40s, right up until 66, the worst chronic pain you can ever imagine ended up at the tail end of it. I was 90% immobile, using a walker, relying on a motorised scooter. I couldn't sit for longer than 5 minutes, couldn't stand for longer than 5 minutes, literally fully disabled. All the way along through it, while the medical model was a necessity, I was still dabbling on the side in learning more and more and more. And at a guess, I'd say probably in about the last 10 to maybe 15 years, pain management has shifted dramatically from a physical response medical model into a psychological response. So a pain management clinic 20 years ago, you would be seeing physios, occupational therapists, all the rest of it. You go to a pain management clinic now, and most of it is counsellors or psychologists, because the shift has been that it's a mindset thing. Now, it's weird because I think one of those ones when they started talking about mindset was maybe 12 or 13 years ago. And I found it so exhausting. I had quite a deep conversation because it was, if you go and look at the sunset and you think happy thoughts, your pain will go away, it was very invalidating. It was actually insulting. I can't even find the words to describe it, but that fired me up. It was like, okay, if this is the new research that pain is a response from your mind, not the physical injury, but from your mind, that was the catalyst.
Yes.
Because it's not as easy as going looking at a sunset. It's more than that. I want to know what it is. So that probably started it maybe 10 years ago. And then 5 years ago, I got really proactive with it. It's okay. I've learned more. I'm going to start playing around with this. But you know how little catalysts happen in your life that you think are just minute little nothings of day-to-day life,
Yeah.
but you end up looking back at them and go, holy moly, that was a light bulb moment. I've had a lot of them. My daughter came over one day. I was looking after her children while she went to a medical appointment. And when she came back, she said, I just saw this chiropractor for the first time in town and said, I've been talking to him about you and he reckons that he can help. And my initial response, because I was in a pretty dark place emotionally, my initial response was, there's no way anybody's going to. Look, I was in so much physical pain. And she said, no, I've spoken to him and he's reassured me he will only use applied kinesiology. And that was my little light bulb. Like, oh, okay. Anyway, I made the appointment with him and I booked in. We go into the room. He's a lovely guy. And, hi, Kelsey told me a little bit about the story. What can I do for you? And I said, before we do anything, I said, I'm not getting up on the table. I've literally come to interview you anyway. And you just burst out laughing. He's okay. And I said, I don't want any intervention until I feel confident about what we're going to do and how we're going to approach it. And he was so open-minded. Bless his heart. He was amazing. He was like, okay, it's your body. If you don't want me to do something, I won't do it. But we talked it through and we made appointments and so on. And that was the beginning of the shift, because it probably took nearly 9 months before I started to see enough improvement to give me a light to look at. Like the first couple of months, he only saw me once every 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm talking treatment that is so gentle, it's ridiculous. And I would have a response where it would cause a flare. So he would give me a week or week and a half to recover, and then I'd go back and he'd do another little one. And for 6 months, there was really no change. And then there was these, and I'm talking minuscule, there was just these little tiny changes. And I knew from my training in AK what they meant. And he'd look at me and I'd look at him and we'd both go, did
Amazing.
you see that? I'd be like, yes. And that was what started it, because it was like, oh my God. So I then went to fortnightlies for the rest of the year, appointments. And for the last just over 2 years, I have seen him every single week. I'm actually going there at 11 o'clock this morning.
Nice.
And he still does applied kinesiology on me. He still doesn't do any adjustments at all, which is fine. But along that 2 years of seeing him every week, because I've seen improvements, it's given me the confidence to try other things. So I started doing hydrotherapy and the heated water pool and all sorts of other things. But that really was the light bulb moment that created the difference.
That's beautiful. And it shows that it just takes that little bit of relief. Because, yeah, I have had pain, but I'm sure I've not had the level that you're describing. And there's no life, right? You can't get out of bed, you can't do anything, you're depressed. Life is gone when you have that level of chronic pain. So it shows getting that little bit of relief. And
Yes.
you got it through this chiropractor, and sometimes you can get it through other things. Again, like I think that's where medication or things can help. But what I really appreciate about you is you talk about, you heard about this mindset shift thing. And for you, it's okay. The way they're doing the mindset shift stuff is, like you said, insulting of, oh, just be happy. Like that's such a Band-Aid mindset thing, right? That's like spiritual bypassing on a mindset level. But that seed of, okay, but a mindset shift can mean something else.
Yes.
That's the thing. Like you were able to look at that more deeply. Was that part of, as you were doing this applied kinesiology, working with the chiropractor, was there some of that in there too? Were you looking at mindset and mind-body connection stuff, or how did that play a role, if at all?
Before I answer that question, you talked about having a little bit of relief. Change that word to hope. Literally was given a little bit of, oh my goodness, this can change. That little bit of relief gave me hope. But yeah, talking about that, what you just said, sitting in the chiropractor's office, this is the most beautiful practice. Wonderful staff. Like from the moment you step in the door, the receptionist, everybody, it's just lovely. They've got such a wonderful practice. But they have a television that's always playing constantly positive mindset stuff, exercises for gentle things, So I always go in and that's playing in the background. They've got toys for children and blackboards and all the rest of it. It's got a really lovely vibe about it. But in each of the consulting rooms, there's a little tiny whiteboard, and it's just stuck on the wall. And every day there's some little quote somebody's written up there with a marker. And he's running between all of the chiros. I think there's 5 of them, are all running 2 consulting rooms at a time. So they finish with one person. When they step into the other room, you're already ready and primed to go. So it's like a little factory. So while I'm sitting in this room waiting for him to finish with his previous client, I usually will be emptying my head, because I know I receive the best treatment and I get the best response if I'm not taking the shopping list into the consultation. So I spend that 3 or 4 minutes just emptying everything out. But I'll often look at that board with the little quote on it. Sometimes I forget all about it. But this is another one of those light bulb moments. This one particular day a year ago, I looked up and it said, pain is an emotion. That's all it said, nothing else. I sat there and looked and I'm thinking, pain is an emotion. I know pain is a message. I understand that concept, but pain is an emotion, and it played on my mind for days. And then all of a sudden I had a light bulb moment. I thought pain is actually a stuck emotion. It's an emotion that we haven't processed. It's an emotion that we're holding on to for the wrong reasons. It's an emotion that we haven't sat with, acknowledged, worked through and recognized. It's one we've pushed down because of life. So, an analogy, wife's washing the dishes, looking out the kitchen window, hubby comes home and starts yakking on about his day and doesn't say hello, how are you? And she just continues washing the dishes. And all in the back of her head, she's thinking, gee, hi, Lyn, how are you?
Yeah.
That's a tiny little bit of resentment. It's minuscule. It's the size of a sesame seed, but it is a little bit. So if you bite your tongue, more and more gets suppressed. We hold billions of emotions. But when you hold them and you don't process them, either by verbalizing them or working through them or recognizing them, sitting with them and letting them pass through, that's why pain is an emotion. And that little flipping whiteboard was like, oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yes, it made sense.
Hey, Sacred Illness listeners, Dr. Erin here. If the stories on this podcast have stirred something in you, if you're hearing these conversations and thinking, that feels true for me too, then this message is for you. You know by now that illness is not a random malfunction. It's a message. It's a call. It's a sacred, if not difficult, invitation to remember who you really are. But hearing the paradigm is one thing. Walking the path yourself is another. Where do you even begin? How do you translate that knowing into a daily practice? How do you move from listening to the message of your symptoms to actually understanding it step by step and learning how to heal with it? That is exactly why I created the Sacred Illness community. It's a living, guided container for those who are ready to answer the call of their own body. This is where the philosophy becomes a map, where you move from insight to integration. Inside, you'll find my full Sacred Illness Blueprint. This is a 9-chapter journey that guides you through the mythic stages of illness as initiation. It weaves together the somatic education, nervous system science, and deep self-inquiry we talk about here on the podcast. But it's more than a course. It's a community. It's a place for growth, not just commiseration. You'll have access to live events, somatic yoga, intuitive eating courses, and a library of EFT and self-hypnosis tracks, and a forum to connect with others who are speaking this same language of the body. This is for the listener who's done searching for answers and is ready to begin the real journey of transformation. Membership is just $37 a month, and you can cancel anytime. And as a thank you for listening to this podcast, you can use coupon code PODCAST, that's all caps, PODCAST, at checkout for 20% off your first month. If you're ready to get started, check out the link below in the show notes or go to mysacredillness.com, enter the coupon code, and get started today. This is your next step. The path is here, and it's ready for you when you're ready to take it. Okay, let's get back to the podcast. I've never heard it vocalized in that way before or explained in that way before, but that's completely it. I worked in a inpatient hospital here where people went for PTSD and chronic pain, and we had an amazing pain doctor there, and he was really good at talking about that mind-body connection and talked about trauma and all that. If you distill it down, that's really what trauma is. You're holding something in the
Yes.
body. It's something that you didn't get to complete. You didn't get to express the emotion.
Yes.
You didn't get needs met. Something caused something to get stuck in your system, which
Yeah.
ultimately has an emotional charge to it in some way, shape, or form. And thinking about too what you were talking about when this pain started, you're a single mom of 4, which I cannot fathom. I have 2 with a husband and it's hard enough. So like
Yes.
double that, less one adult. I can't imagine how that
It
was
was
for you.
crazy.
I
I don't know
can't.
how I did it.
Yeah.
I think back and I don't know how I did it. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
did.
it's,
Going back to that hospital situation where you said you worked with PTSD, this is exactly why and how I had the career change that I did. Because I now work with people with PTSD and trauma responses and all the rest of it via art. Because people who cannot verbally express their swallowed pain can often express it through their hands. A very traumatized person can't even bring up an issue. But if they can express it through their hands, that is their little light of opening up. So this is me going back to the 8-year-old with asthma. I was a huge drawer. Lyn always had a coloured pencil in her hand. Like I was either writing words or drawing pictures or doing whatever. Art was my thing. And when adults say to kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, always was I want to be a teacher. And they'd say, teach what? And I'd say art. And that started when I was like 8. When I left home, you can't go to university and study because you're too busy working to pay the rent, to put food on the table. So that opportunity disappeared. But through all of this, I'm still drawing. I'll be doodling pictures. My hands are always moving. So then when we get to my early 30s and this situation with the relationship broke down, I'm thinking, how the heck am I going to create an income working at the gym when I've got 2 at school, 1 in kinder, 1 at home? It's just not going to work. And I had plenty of opportunities to go and get jobs, but I was very concerned about the way I raised my children. I didn't want to put them all into childcare after school care and only come home to a very exhausted one parent
right.
where they needed 2.
Yep.
So I thought the only way I'm going to do this is to be able to work from home. And yes, it would be nutty because there'd be 4 children running around while I'm working, or 2 if the others were at school. So I thought, what do I love doing most? That was my first question, and it was art. So this is a bit of a funny story. We had a table tennis table, and I painted the top of it black and painted roses all over the top of it and bought some bench seats and turned it into a teaching table. And the kids killed me. They were like, what have you done to our table tennis table? You and your silly pictures everywhere now. It's got stupid roses. But it meant when the 2 were at school, I could teach a class at night time. I could teach, they'd go to bed at 7:30 and I could take class. That's what started it. So this is, I don't know, mid-30s. When I was 50, all the kids had left home and I had the opportunity to go to uni. And I did. I did a 5-year degree. And I'm still teaching and I'm still painting and I'm still selling art and I've still got stuff in shops and that's all still happening in the background. I've taught thousands of people. So after you've taught thousands and thousands of human beings, you become pretty good at reading where somebody's at. And my home-based studio was always the rule that it was a place that was safe to talk, that there would never be any gossip. Nobody was allowed to come in and go, did you see what Julie down the street did with her roses? And none of the stories that are shared were ever to leave the room. It was a place that developed trust. And very quickly I discovered that people came not only just to learn to paint, they came because they were in a safe place. They came because it was their 2 hours a week where they could just let their shoulders down. And it made it very obvious to me it was nothing to do with the actual painting. It was all to do with the process and me giving them the freedom to do whatever they wanted. Like I've never taught, okay, today we are going to paint a sunflower. I've always asked people, what do you want to create? Why are you here? What are your interests? I teach techniques. I teach people how to use equipment, basically. Like in a nutshell, this is how you use the thing, whether it be a paintbrush or a lumber clay or whatever. I'll show you technically how to do it so you have success. But if you can read a person's trauma just sitting with them for a few minutes, you see it in their eyes, you see it in the way they hold their body, you see it in the way they speak about them. Oh, I can't do this. I've never been able to do this. My teacher told me I was useless at art. I failed this. I don't even know why I'm here. I've heard it all. And I think it helped me learn how to approach different people in different ways to help them open up. The last client that I had that I would say was severely traumatized was only in October. I only do small parts of 4 to 5 people, no more, for this very reason. But she was told by a friend because of her trauma that she should go and find a hobby. And somebody had mentioned art. So she warned me all of it. We've done quite a lot of chatting. I'm talking about half a dozen phone calls that probably added up to an hour before she decided to come. Like, what do you do? Who are the other people? I don't know. I don't like talking to strangers. How far away all that is from me? All those sort of normal cues that we get from people that say, wow, this person's been a really tough spot. Anyway, after, I think she did 8 weeks, 9 weeks she did in total. The person that walked out of that last session, she was totally different person. And I've got testimonials from her about how it helped. Sometimes psychological counseling for people who are going through mind, body, spirit challenges of any sort, talking is not always the answer, because talking about the trauma reawakens the trauma, and working with your hands is a silent response. You see a result if you've made something that you're interested in, whether it be a clay snake or a picture of a flower, or something that you enjoy, you get a little tiny glimmer of that word that I said called hope. Oh my God, I made that myself. And that's where I think doing something creative, and it doesn't have to be art. When I say creatively, it could be making a veggie garden or baking a cake. Creativity doesn't mean holding a pencil or a paintbrush. Creativity means using your hand and your body to do something with an outcome.
Yes.
And yeah, sometimes I think that's often the best rehabilitation. Not sitting in a pain management clinic, in a hospital, on a chair, looking at somebody with a whiteboard and a television screen, quoting stuff out of a book.
Yeah. Again, like we said, things that lead to chronic illness is that holding something in. And so the antidote is letting it out, which is expression.
Yeah.
And so that's what healing is. Self-expression is letting you out again, being yourself, embodying yourself. And I think it's so beautiful to think of art as that way. Like you said, it could be literally art, like drawing, painting, etc. It could be making something like bread or whatever that is, but it's expressing yourself. I think that's a really important shift we're making in trauma related therapy, is finding a way for a person to feel safe being themselves again. Feeling safe to be seen, feeling safe to express themselves is ultimately what leads to healing of the physical stuff, the trauma itself. And so it's such a beautiful way to think of that, as you creating art, but also creating art in a safe space. So not only are they expressing themselves, but they're doing it in a place where they know I'm safe. People are not going to talk about me. I'm being seen. I'm being held. That's it. Those are all of the ingredients that we need to heal. And you created that so intuitively, just knowing what was needed there. And it's also really beautiful too, because my whole thing is illness is trying to get us back to ourselves. And it's just this incredible arc for you, where asthma being the first thing, but being this little artist child, you start your illness journey, you want to be a teacher, an art teacher. And then you get all the way to the end of this arc and here you are, you're an art teacher.
Yeah.
You're doing it, right?
Yep.
You stepped into that. I love that. And it's in this way that you might not have ever done before, right? Like obviously when we think of art teacher, we aren't thinking of art therapy, PTSD, nothing like that comes to mind. And yet it's exactly the beautiful medicine that you provide. Again, knowing you having this intuition, you having this ability to hold space for people, to create safety. You being an art teacher in this way is exactly how I think it sounds like it was meant to be for you.
You just nailed it straight on the head, because I know that now. If I had have gone to uni as an 18-year-old and got my degree and gone into a school and become an art teacher, I would have been flipping miserable. I can tell you that now, because it would not have given me the personal reward of human connection, because I would have been in the education model of you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And actually, to be honest, I worked in the school system for 10 years after I did my uni degree, and it nearly broke my brain. This healing and the medical model, it's the difference between educational from learning from life and the education system of going to school. It's exactly the same. It's the two opposites of the coin. And I think although the journey's been flipping hard and there's been like some deep trough, I'm exactly where I should be.
The beauty of talking to someone where you are now, you can look back and see that. And so for people who are in those troughs, in those dark moments, in those places that feel hopeless and where there's no light at the end of the tunnel, you can hear these stories and understand that it's just a matter of time, right? And I know it's so hard to find any hope or any trust or anything like that when you're in those dark moments. But again, hearing that it's trusting that next seed will come, that little ping, that little thing, that little whatever that is, that will just change your path. And I think it's a matter of just keeping that open mind of, I don't know what it is. I don't know when it's going to happen. It could be the most random thing, like someone writing something on a whiteboard that I happen to look at.
Always the little random things.
Yep.
There will be all these little teeny tiny moments like the whiteboard that slowly you'll come back. And I couldn't have been a teacher in the school system in the 20s. And knowing that, it's what I've experienced that has given me the empathy to be able to hear somebody else or see somebody else. And I really, from that point of view, I appreciate what.
Right. And that's it. It's in retrospect, we can understand the journey that happened so that we could get to where we are. And yeah, I think of what you're doing now is that is your medicine. That is your gift when it took those lessons to be able to manifest it in this current way. And I always say, of course, I wouldn't wish what we have to go through on these chronic illness journeys. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And also, if we're going to go on it, if this is our story, if this is our path, we might as well learn from it. Again, that's the goal, is we have to trust, somehow dig deep and trust that this is going somewhere. It's not for nothing. It's trying to get you somewhere. And the more we can lean into that and try to listen, I can't promise it will expedite the process, but it will at least change our relationship to it. So it's not just suffering for suffering's sake. There's something down the road for us. So I wonder if there's anything you could, if someone is listening, if there's anything you want to add to someone who might be listening, who's in that trough moment, who's really having a hard time seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Any nuggets of wisdom or anything you want to say that we haven't said yet to just help them understand that there's light coming?
When I look back, I would not wish what I went through, and you wouldn't either, on my worst enemy. It was really flipping challenging. And every time I see a person go past me with a walker or a wheelchair, or I can see they're in physical pain, that's what's given me empathy. That's what's opened my soul to. And we're all just souls in bodies. And so many people are disrespectful to people with disabilities. They rush them, they ignore them. And if you're an old lady and you've got a disability, you may as well be a joke. I think no matter what age you are and where you are in your journey, we're all going to go through challenges. I'm going to have plenty more. There's no doubt about that. So is everybody else. But always, I think probably the most important message is know that your body is your biggest signal. Like your body tells you so much about what's going on in your life, and just learn as much as you possibly can. Listen to other people's experiences. Some of it will just pass by you and it'll be like water going past you in a river. But some of it will be the rock in the river that will make you stop and think. You'll think, oh, that person, so it's like me with a whiteboard. Might it just be a sketch? It might just be a picture. It could be anything. But be aware of taking on board all these little signs of learning more and more about how we work.
That's it. You had said in the notes you sent me this idea of baby steps, the necessity of patience, this idea of, I think we all want that big thing, right? The fix, the thing that does it, the one thing.
Absolutely.
It doesn't
Absolutely.
exist. Sometimes we have those big leaps forward, but ultimately, I think what gets us to where we're going are the baby steps, the tiny little things that add up to the big result, and it's trusting that, having patience with it. Yeah.
Like all those the Sesame seed moments, because often they're so tiny, people who are walking through life with blinkers on don't even notice them. But if you are aware and you listen, it's amazing. Now, when you say people want an instant result nowadays, I know I sound like a little old lady going, oh, the world has to slow down. But this happened so many times. When I was in the hydrotherapy school, they got a red and I was wheeled down the red and I was put in a noodle, like a full floating noodle, and I just hung in deep water. That went on for like 6 months. Now, 2.5 years later, I walk down the stairs, I've got bathers on, and I do an exercise program. I'm very aware of other people's conversations, and the amount of times I have heard people say, oh my goodness, I've been coming for 4 weeks and I don't feel any different. Why doesn't this back pain go away? And I want to just go, hang on a minute. I was wheeled down that ramp 2.5 years ago and couldn't walk. They look at me as if I've got nothing wrong with me and I would not understand. Because that's what I look like there. I see this person there who's walking up and down the pool without a limp and all that, and they think, oh, who's she? But then you hear the conversation and you think, oh, it's only you. You've got to go, baby step, and celebrate the little tiny wins.
There's no way to know what someone is going through. People say that all the time who have chronic illness, being told, like, you don't look sick. You know, what's wrong with you? You look fine. And it's just that, I think it's a population in general. We have to let go this idea that illness looks a certain way and health looks a certain way and illness, like healing, looks a certain way. And everything we've been talking about, like there's one way to heal, there's one modality, there's one thing. That's just not true. Like your whole story is about this combining of modalities, finding all the things that work for you and pulling it all together and just trusting it and allowing your journey to be your own and not letting yourself get stuck in one way of being, not getting stuck in one story and stuck in one mindset of who you are and just being open. That's the ultimate sort of lesson from you, is this openness of just, okay, I'm curious. Where's my curiosity going to lead me? What path do I go down? And not saying no to something just because it doesn't fit into this algorithm or this mindset of it has to look this way. Because that's it, right? It's working with the fear, feeling it anyway, and trusting your intuition, allowing your journey to go in any direction it needs to go, putting it all together, taking those baby steps, and look at you now, right? 10 years ago, you probably would never have known that you would be here now. And here you are.
I didn't think I'd be walking on the edge.
Yeah. We get to write our story. And I'd like to end the podcast with asking who your illness invited you to become. And we know in a literal sense, your illness invited you to become this incredible art teacher who does art in this very unique and very important way. I'm wondering how else you might answer that question on a personal level, on a sort of human level. Who are you because of this lifelong healing journey?
The simplest answer ever, me, because the whole thing has taught me to listen to me. Other people's opinion, it doesn't matter what you do. You get a new job, you buy a new house, you choose to have a natural birth, you list a billion things. But conversations with other people always revolve around, oh, but why are you doing this? Are you sure you're doing the right thing? Oh, I wouldn't do it that way. Until we learn that those words are their words from their story, not your story, that's where the shift happens. And I think the whole journey, all 68 years of it has taught me just to be me.
That's exactly what I
Yeah.
think of illness as inviting us to become, is ourselves, right? In that
Yeah. Yeah.
simplistic, but obviously not simple. Simple in theory,
Yeah.
very complicated in execution, but here you are.
Absolutely.
You arrived here. And oh my goodness, I feel like looking at the notes, there's 20 other things we didn't get to talk about. So maybe we'll do a round two at some point. This is such a heartwarming conversation. And I'm just so appreciative of your wisdom and your heart and the way that you have come to this place of being someone who now helps others. Your healing presence is so needed in this world, and the space you hold for people and the safety you create. It's this really beautiful example of how illness is this holding in and self-expression is the path. And there's so many ways to do that. And I just appreciate the way in which your journey led you to this really beautiful path for others to heal in a similar way. And you said your classes are closed down for now. I assume they're only in person, or do you do anything virtual at the moment?
I've got a plan in mind, and it will be happening in around March.
Okay.
I'm having long sleep for the first time in my life. My Instagram page will always be active. I've created a thing called Daily Doodle and Thought. So every single day, starting yesterday, I'm putting up a drawing, a sketch, a doodle, painting, whatever I'm in the mood for, with a matching thought to the picture.
That's part of this too, right? Is the medicine is for others, but it's also for you to keep expressing self. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm doing it for me. There is no doubt. But if you give somebody else a smile or a laugh or a moment or whatever, awesome.
Yes. And your Instagram is the studio handmade. I'll link that down below so people can follow you and look at your art and get inspired by what you're doing. And it sounds like your re-rollout of your studio is going to be in March. So will that be posted on your Instagram as well?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there's some planning in the work, and March will be the announcement. And it's funny that, I'll give you a hint, it's funny that you said rolling out. Remember that, because it involves wheels.
Okay. I will keep that in mind. That's exciting to hear. I have an idea maybe what that might look like, but yeah, that's exciting.
You'll laugh about that if you see the post.
I know I have listeners all over the world, and I know there's several in Australia. So maybe some people listening to this will get in touch with you, be part of the rollout, literally.
Good.
Lyn, thank you so much. Again, I'm just so grateful that we found each other. I'm so grateful for social media, for all of its flaws, for connecting us and helping me reach people like you who I never would know otherwise. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning to share your story. I know that you're here because of the goodness of your heart. Like you said, you're just here to share your story, to help people. I just so appreciate that generosity and that kindness of you to be here for that reason and that reason only. And so thank you for everything you shared with us today. I'm so excited for my listeners to hear this story. I think it's such a powerful and just inspiring. It's going to give them that if she can do it, I can too thing, which is what
I know so. Yeah, and so lovely to meet you, really. I love watching the social media posts, and I hope you continue doing what you're doing. It's really important.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. I'll look forward to seeing you all on the next episode. Until then. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sacred Illness Podcast. If you find this information shared here inspirational and educational, please share it with those you think would benefit from this work. To take this work deeper yourself, check out our website, www.aurorasomatic.com, where you can explore our coaching, community, and course options. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel where new content is coming out all the time, intended to inspire, awaken, and help you deepen your relationship with yourself, your life, and your world. We'll see you next time.